listening to another episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell, and I am joined this week by my colleague on the West Coast, Eric Woolley. Eric, welcome back to the Coaster 101 podcast.
Hey, Andrew. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. The good news is, no offense to you, you don't come alone from the West Coast this week.
No.
We actually have pre-recorded an interview with Stephen Siercks, who is Senior Director, Entertainment Production at Universal Studios Hollywood. He is a 22-year Universal Studios Hollywood veteran. And for the purposes of this podcast episode, he is executive producer of the park's FanFest nights, now in its second year, taking place select nights from April 23rd through May 16th. There's some Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, a couple of Sundays in there. Go to the Universal Studios Hollywood website. But the fandoms represented in this year's event. This is an event put on for fans of specific IPs. Maybe the IP that is not fully built out into a Universal land or a theme park world. Yeah. But we've got Scooby-Doo meets the Universal Monsters on the back lot. We've got One Piece, which is an anime, manga. They've got a show in the Waterworld Theater. They've got Sailor Moon. There is a Harry Potter Wizarding World Search for the Hippogriff walkthrough. There is a Dungeons and Dragons walkthrough. And then there is a Super Nintendo World Yoshi meet and greet and an interactive puzzle game. This is a really fun interview, and I didn't know very much about FanFest nights going into this, but I am extremely jealous that I am on the East Coast after talking to Stephen, because this is going to be a very fun after-hours event, and I think as after-hours events go, like tickets for this start at like $75, something like that. Very, very, very affordable for an after-hours theme park.
And the hours for it, I think, are like 7:30 to 1:30 a.m. or something. It's not a short event.
No. And you get, some of the rides are still available, select rides, but you also have these kind of immersive interactive experiences. And we will get into all of those shortly here with Stephen. But Eric, I know you've got some plans to go down to FanFest nights after talking with Stephen, right?
Yep, definitely going down this year.
Well, here's the good news. You're about to find out why. So without further ado, here is our chat with Stephen Siercks from Universal Hollywood. Stephen, welcome to the Coaster 101 podcast. We are so thrilled to have you join us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, for our audience, who may or may not know the name Stephen Siercks, tell us about you. I know you're a 2-decade plus Universal veteran at this point, but tell us about you and your role as Senior Director of Entertainment Production at Universal Studios Hollywood.
Yeah, I am the Senior Director of Entertainment Production, which means that our team oversees all of the live entertainment for Universal Studios Hollywood. So everything from Halloween Horror Nights, of course, now FanFest Nights, which we are super excited about, to any new offering that might come to the park throughout the year. So beyond that, I also serve as the executive producer of FanFest Nights and have had the joy of being part of this event for the last 4 years now, even though it's only our second year of actually developing the event. We've been working on it for the past 4 years or so.
Okay. And what about your background? I mean, like I said, you've been with Universal for the better part of 20, more than 2 decades at this point. You're just kind of working your way up through the live entertainment ranks?
I have been. So 22 years at Universal, and it has been quite the ride over the last couple decades. So all the time I've been in entertainment through various divisions of it. Started in the operations side as a stage manager over at Waterworld and had some really great summers over there, and then transitioned over to the production team before there really was a true production team. And then about, 10 years ago or so, was able to take on a version of the role I'm in now, helping to lead the team and guide some of the production and producing of the projects, and have really kind of grown with the park. It's been awesome to see how Universal Studios Hollywood has grown over the last couple decades. And certainly with the development and opening of Wizarding World of Harry Potter, which just celebrated its 10-year anniversary, which is hard to believe. Yeah. It has been amazing to be part of that accelerated growth.
I love it. Well, we might have to talk off pod. I know Eric is like the world's greatest like Waterworld super fans, so you guys might have to.
Oh, really?
I love Waterworld's my favorite thing at Universal, and I wrote a little thing about its anniversary back in
Yes.
the fall, and I was like, this is I'm glad it has mostly stayed untouched for 30 years.
Yeah, Waterworld holds a really special place in my heart. So I started there, and then in 2014 or so, we had a chance to go back and do a pretty significant remount on it.
Yeah.
And we went in and we changed some elements around and changed the story, added some additional stunts, and it was so nice to be able to go back to it and have a meaningful impact on its current future, which ultimately got it the Thea Classic Award, which was an exciting moment for her as well. So just kind of coming back to it, and now with the One Piece show there for FanFest Nights, coming back yet again to put another iconic moment on top of it as well.
Yeah, I think we'll get into that a little bit later in the podcast.
100%.
So just for any listeners that somehow missed what FanFest Nights was last year and that it's coming back this year, can you give us sort of like the high-level overview of FanFest Nights?
Sure. So FanFest Nights is the ultimate fan event. So it's a separately priced after-hours ticket that celebrates the genres of sci-fi, fantasy, gaming, and anime all in one event. It really is the cross between Comic-Con type environment and a Halloween Horror Nights. And so we've been able to really build upon some of the legacy of Halloween Horror Nights in terms of bringing our guests to the park after hours, allowing them to explore these worlds, meet these characters, tell these stories in a compelling way, all through the lens of being fan first, meaning that we're servicing the fans who have the fandom for these genres, and then authenticity. So both in terms of how we tell the stories we tell themselves, and then always putting that uniquely Universal spin on it. We want to create content that only you can get here at Universal Studios.
I guess then going back to last year a little bit, going back to all of last year's FanFest. Before that, where did the idea for FanFest Nights come from? How long had that been in the works? Where that concept was, what actually it turned out to be in line with what your initial ideas were?
Yeah. So the development of FanFest Nights goes back, several years, because we've always been looking to replicate what we do in the fall with Halloween Horror Nights into a spring event. And the fans wanted more, so we wanted to give them more in terms of these after-hours events and reasons to continue coming back to Universal Studios Hollywood. Yeah. And we looked at a lot of different concepts. And ultimately, about 4 years ago, we landed on FanFest Nights as an opportunity to create these new types of experiences. And from there, we started exploring what types of genres we might want to include as part of the event. So that's what ultimately landed us on sci-fi, fantasy, gaming, and anime, because we found that there were stories to tell and different brands that we could explore in different ways and tell these stories through the lens of the fan.
I was doing a little reading before we started recording. Is it true that your son is kind of your sounding board for a lot of these fandoms?
My 11-year-old son is the ultimate sounding board. And what's awesome about just the brands that we've been able to work with as part of FanFest Nights is that they're multi-generational. So a lot of these brands, whether it be Star Trek last year or Scooby-Doo and the Monsters this year, across all of the different genres, I grew up with. And now my son is growing up with them as well. So it's been awesome to have my own experience and my nostalgia with it, but also bridge that with the relevancy of the current moment. And certainly I use him as sounding boards to understand what's out there, what are things that people are talking about, but also through the lens of how I remember those same brands as well.
Was that where, I look at all the things that were at last year's and this year's, and as somebody who grew up in the late 80s and 90s, lots of them resonate with me. Was that the first, how did you, decide on what fandoms you were going to feature in the inaugural year last year?
Yeah, we did a lot of research on it. And as I mentioned, we just looked at first, what are the stories that are untold? And what are some areas that we can really tap into communities out there, fandoms, that might not necessarily have this in-world theme park application. A great example of that is anime. We've got a strong collaboration and partnership with our Universal Studios Japan partners who have been working on developing anime content at their park for the last several decades. So we had a chance to go out to Universal Studios Japan, meet with them, see what they do. And it just was so compelling in terms of the level of immersion and characterization that you can get out of those anime stories. And then fully understanding that there is a strong fandom and strong community for anime here in the States as well. So we were thrilled to be one of the first theme parks to be able to develop content around anime here, certainly in the Los Angeles area, if not domestically. And it resonated so strongly because of that. And we know that that's a great example of how these genres are a true testament to what FanFest Nights is.
Yeah.
So with all the potential options, you mentioned anime. We've mentioned, I know Dungeons and Dragons was an IP that was used last year. How was it kind of narrowed down? You wanted to focus on some specific fandoms, the anime, D&D, things like that. But how did you kind of narrow it down further within those spaces? What was that process like?
So first, when we looked at the different genres, we started exploring different brands and stories that made sense to bring to life within those genres. And we put on a whiteboard. I remember the day where we put on a whiteboard all these different brands and all these different stories that we'd want to tell. And truly, the first model that we came up with was where we ultimately almost landed with year one, with very little change. Because it resonated so perfectly with the ability to stay fan first, to be authentic, to tell these stories, and to make sure that it really upheld the ideals of what this event wanted to be.
I think I realize that you might not be able to get into too many details about this, but I wanted to ask a little bit about, I guess, the success of last year's FanFest Nights. And I mean, I guess partly just were you expecting it to be as successful as it was? And did you always know that there were going to be second, hopefully third, fourth, fifth years of it? Or was it, hey, yeah, this was great. Let's keep doing it. Let's expand it. Let's change what we've got. Was that something that was decided after seeing the result?
Yeah. A combination of both, right? Is that we definitely had a multi-year roadmap when we started FanFest Nights. And we wanted to see how the first year went and what resonated with fans and where they connected to these genres and how they connected to the genres. So, when we were first developing the event, we started putting together these different experiences, and we realized from a very early stage that there was something special here. There was something that hadn't been done in terms of the type of experiences we were creating, and the way in which the guests would be able to interact with these moments and with these stories. So knowing that there was something special, we continued to push boundaries. And so we did that in several different ways, whether it be the types of engagement. We created a new type of theme park application, these story-based pulsed attractions, which is similar to Halloween Horror Nights in that we drop our guests in the middle of these worlds and allow them to explore them. Though while Halloween Horror Nights is a linear experience, you're in a single file line all the way through. FanFest Nights allows you to have these pulsed moments where you're put into smaller groups and you experience the entire attraction in these small groups. And you travel from scene to scene, and it allows you to have dwell time in each of these scenes. So we get that much more ability to immerse the guests into these brands, which ultimately results in about, on average, a 10 to 14 minute experience. So all of that put together, we knew there was something special there. We opened, we got such great response to the first year of FanFest Nights, which then propelled us into this second year. And we're always continuing to iterate and innovate along the way to see what's next.
Cool. I maybe touch on that a little bit. And I think you maybe hinted at with mentioning that there was a multi-year roadmap for it. This year we've got some returning fandoms, D&D back again, some that are again more things like One Piece now moving from kind of the meet and greet to a full show. How did you already know what fandoms were going to come back, or how did you make the decisions of, hey, what are we going to bring back in year two and what new ones are we going to add in here?
Yeah, we listened to our fans. We really saw what rose to the top in terms of the experiences, and they all were so well received. And then when we were trying to balance a year two slate, we mapped out what made sense to return, what might want to be held back, what would we want to explore in a different way. Great example of that is One Piece, where out the gate, huge fan response to One Piece. So we knew from a very early stage, once we opened last year's event, that we wanted to do something more. We wanted to do something bigger. So that's what then allowed us to connect to the One Piece show at Waterworld, and literally taking it from a meet and greet experience into a show experience. was a natural evolution for that brand and for that story, and then finding similar through lines through all the other facets of what we're doing this year as well.
Cool.
So I got to go back to this whole whiteboard concept. With so many of these properties, these IPs, there can be kind of a blank canvas when you're world building and creating these kind of immersive attractions. Can you touch a little bit on kind of the planning process and kind of maybe the creative ideation of how you come up with, this one is going to be an immersive walkthrough. This is going to be a live show. This is going to be kind of a meet and greet, but there's also a puzzle involvement. What's the creative process like?
Yeah, it's a strong one, and we work with some amazing creative individuals who were able to put together these different types of experiences. And for every brand that we worked with, we had a couple different variations of how we could activate it. And so once we came up with the few different concepts for each, that allowed us to put everything in front of us and figure out what the right way to map it all together and stitch it all together is. Which then opened up some additional opportunities that weren't really seen at the beginning. So a great example of that is with Back to the Future last year, and being able to open up Courthouse Square and allow our guests to travel to the back lot and experience Courthouse Square as it was when the movie was once filmed there, and literally walk in the footsteps of Marty McFly. We knew we wanted to do that. And then from there, it really started to build upon how we would do it. And this idea of not necessarily traditional meet and greets, but the ability to have this almost theatrical, immersive meet and greet where you could follow your favorite character around as the story is being told in this 45 minutes rotation, which then allowed us to build upon that and add some additional theatricality to it with the ability to replicate the Under the Sea enchantment prom and the finale moment. So everything kind of built upon the thing before it, which is the best type of innovation out there when it truly is not only innovation, it's that iterative spirit of continuing to tweak and change and push to find the right balance of everything until everything clicks into place, and then we know we've got something there.
Maybe just like following up on that a little bit, did you continue to like tweak any of the experiences after FanFest started, from the beginning of FanFest to the end? Because you've got, obviously it's the first time you're doing it, so you're testing it with people, and then you've got a few more weeks. Was there any adjustment as you went?
Certainly during rehearsals, we made some adjustments and tweaks and changes. Once we opened, we were really happy with what we saw. So of course there was a few operational things here and there, but the foundation of it was set. So we were able to allow it to really breathe, and that's when I think the performances really come out. Is when you can allow an activation like we do in FanFest Nights to truly stand on its own.
Cool,
got it. Let's talk about this year, though. There are a number of new experiences, and you mentioned Back to the Future was on the backlot this year. This year's backlot experience is a little bit different. It's kind of a crossover of two very unique, different fandoms, but still kind of united. What can you tell us about the Scooby-Doo, Universal Monsters all coming together? I know, Universal's Florida Park, their slogan for so many years was Ride the Movies. And, their pre-shows were like, hey, you're an extra in this movie and you get to do this. This is kind of what it feels like you're going to get to do with this Scooby-Doo, Monsters crossover.
Yeah, so Scooby-Doo meets the Universal Monsters Mystery on the Backlot. And as you mentioned, it's our way of reintroducing the backlot in a new way this year. So we're allowing our guests exclusive access to now explore Little Europe on the Universal backlot. And for those who might not know, Little Europe is actually the birthplace of the Universal Monsters. So a lot of the classic monster films were filmed on location there almost 100 years ago. So now we're giving our guests access to this location and telling this great story of Scooby-Doo and the Universal Monsters, which draws and brings to life that authenticity of it. And talk about two iconic brands coming together in terms of, for the perfect mashup. You've got the legacy of the Universal Monsters with the nostalgia of Scooby-Doo, which really is just synergistic at its core. And the intention there is that you are able to live a real life episode of Scooby-Doo in real time. So we are dropping you into this episode and you are truly living through it. Everything starts on the front lot where you board a studio tour and you start venturing down to the backlot into Little Europe. And along the way, as you mentioned, you find out that there is a new monster movie being filmed on the backlot, and we are being cast as extras. So that's kind of your way into this experience. However, along the way, we actually stop right at the iconic Tristan Eaton monster mural, which is in our Metro sets on the backlot. And there we start learning about our villain character, the Phantom Director, who's wreaking or wants to wreak havoc on this film production. And so he unleashes a curse that brings the Universal monsters back to life. So there's our inciting incident. In that moment, everything is being brought to life, and we're now the monsters are descending upon this film shoot. So of course the Scooby-Doo and the gang come on the scene, and they start to tell us that they're there to help solve this mystery, and they need our help. So when we get off the tram, we already know who we are, what we're doing, why we're there, and our job is not only explore this location, but that added gamification, that added interactivity that we know is at the core FanFest Nights has been added to it, that we're now having to solve this mystery. So we're handed a field guide that contains different clues and our 4 suspects. And as we venture around Little Europe, we interact with characters, we solve these clues, ultimately trying to figure out who is the villain, the best whodunit out there in terms of being able to live through this Scooby-Doo episode.
I've got to say, Stephen, you just did an excellent job of selling me on this experience. Like, I am now extremely excited to go check it out in a few weeks.
It's cool. It's, at its core, it's FanFest Nights. That's what it's all about, is creating these stories, but as an extension of these storied brands.
I love also that it's opening up a different part of the backlot than what people got to see last year. That like, oh, we got to see Courthouse Square last year, and now you're getting to see Little Europe, and being able to see that and get off the tram in a different part of the backlot is also just fun from getting to explore kind of the back parts of Universal Studios.
Absolutely.
What's like the timeline? How long is this experience? I know you mentioned some of the experiences were kind of in that 13 to 15 minute range. What's the kind of the time frame on this Scooby-Doo meets the Universal Monsters? Very long title that that I'm not as familiar of.
The great part about this specific experience is that you can spend as much or as little time at Little Europe as you want. So because of all the nooks and crannies and the gameplay, we really think that there is an opportunity for our guests to spend a good amount of time down there, meeting all the Scooby Gang, interacting with the monsters, solving the mystery. So it truly is up to the individual as to how much they want to consume and how they want to consume it, and in what order they want to consume it down in Little Europe.
Cool. I think maybe jump into another experience. So D&D, I know, was one of the most popular among friends of mine who went to FanFest Nights last year. It's back this year, similar kind of walkthrough experience as it was last year. Are there changes that people who saw it last year can expect to notice this year?
Well, we're really excited to be bringing Dungeons & Dragons Secrets Waterdeep back. So this is one of our story-based pulsed attractions. And as you mentioned, it is being remounted, so we're bringing it back for this year. Though we are making some changes and tweaks along the way. So for those who did experience it last year, you will certainly notice some changes to the structure of it, as well as some of the interactivity. So in some key moments, we've shifted some of the puzzle solving and some of the way in which the overall flow goes from room to room. That I think will be really fun for those returning guests. And if it's your first time, well, you get to go on the journey with our Throckey and Evelina characters in search of the dragon staff that's been stolen by the evil crime lord Xanathar the Beholder for the first time.
Very cool. But that Beholder animatronic puppet, whatever it is also, I think, one of the coolest things I've seen at Universal Park.
Yeah, Xanathar the Beholder is one of the most iconic beholders and villains out there for Dungeons & Dragons, and it was an incredible partnership with the Jim Henson Creature Company bringing that character to life. I say it's 13 feet in diameter from eye stalk to eye stalk because he's an orb-looking thing. And it's fully puppeted, so it is a great moment when you finally reach this item that you're trying to seek as part of the overall experience, and you just turn around and this giant creature is in your face, and he's not so happy that we're trying to recover something that he has stolen.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on a little bit, you mentioned that Dungeons & Dragons was kind of getting a remount. Another experience, or another fandom rather, that's coming back in 2026 is One Piece. And One Piece last year, they had a fan zone. It was, I think, meet and greets with the characters, things like that. Now there is a whole new show in the Waterworld Theater. How was the decision made to kind of grow the very successful One Piece activation? Presumably, that's why it was brought back from the kind of the fan zone into a full blown water spectacular in the Waterworld Theater.
It was a natural progression, something that was so well received and was such a fan favorite last year with our Grand Pirate Gathering, which was a meet and greet. We call it a fan zone experience on the streets of FanFest nights, growing that into a full stage production. Where we'll reintroduce some of the favorite Straw Hat Pirates, but also introduce some new characters. We'll be introducing Buggy, which is one of the iconic villains in the One Piece lore. And along the way, expect stunts and pyrotechnics and everything that the Waterworld venue is known for, done perfectly and connected perfectly into this anime brand that is a natural tie-in with that venue and what that venue can do.
Now, when you're creating a show that is a limited run event, this is select nights in April and May. Um, what is it like creating a show for an existing stage that has hosted another IP for so many years, but you again have kind of this blank canvas for the One Piece universe? How does it all fit together in the Waterworld stage?
One of the nice things about One Piece specifically is that, like I mentioned before, there's such a storied history of activating One Piece in a Waterworld venue at Universal Studios Japan that we were able to draft off of. They've been doing a One Piece experience yearly for the past 20 or so years, where every year it's a new story being told. And there it's a 90-minute show for us to make sure that guests can consume all of what's in store for FanFest nights. Ours is going to be around 20 minutes. But it just shows you the power of being able to use that venue flexibly, which we've been continuing to work through, whether it be productions for Halloween Horror Nights and now for FanFest nights. A venue such as Waterworld is able to tell all these different stories using some of the same sets, certainly some of the same effects, but also making sure that each one is unique in its own way as well.
I think this is so. As somebody who I know what One Piece is, but I have never watched One Piece. Sure, FanFest nights gets lots of people. You'll have people who are huge D&D fans will come to FanFest nights, but then they'll go to everything else. With something like this, how do you make it accessible to people who are not familiar with the IP while still having it appeal to people who are super fans?
It's been really important from the beginning to develop these experiences to service and to create accessibility to all the fandom. So if you're a casual fan, it's very easy to be introduced to the characters, introduced to the storyline, and introduced to the action and adventure that takes place. But if you are a super fan, which we know that there are many of, you get that much more out of it, whether it be deeper characters or the overall storyline, as well as Easter eggs planted throughout. That there's even more to experience for those fans of the fandoms. But for those who are casual or might be a fan of one fandom and experiencing another, that you're getting equal enjoyment there too. It's one of the foundations of FanFest nights and one thing that we're really proud of to continue building upon in year 2.
Cool.
I've got to ask the question on Easter eggs for an event that is so fan-focused and fan-centric. As you're kind of creating, again, all of these different experiences, is it fun for your team to kind of install these Easter eggs all over the place because the fans will pick up on them, they will appreciate them for what they are?
We love it. We love being able to plant Easter eggs all over the experiences. So for those who have affinity or are fans of these different genres, definitely make sure to keep a keen eye as you're walking through or experiencing the different elements of FanFest nights this year, because there literally are Easter eggs around every corner. And it's something the team takes a lot of pride in and pleasure in, being able to provide that further opportunity for fans to engage.
Did you that made me think of a question with did your team already have somebody who was an expert on each of these fandoms, or did you have to do a bunch of research to figure out all right, what Scooby-Doo Easter eggs can we hide in here?
A little of both. Certainly when you're developing content that people have such affinity for, and again, going back to the pillars of FanFest nights, it needs to be fan first and it needs to be authentic. And in order to do so, you need to tap into those who have affinity for these fandoms themselves. So certainly throughout the creative and development process, we tapped into our teams who had those fandoms to be able to participate in the development process. And even for those who weren't directly connected to it, we call them fanagers, where we brought them in and we allowed them to get an update on where we're at and provide their feedback and have check-ins along the way, so that we continue to promote that fan-first and authentic approach.
Cool. I love it.
I need to find a way to use the word fanager in daily life. I love that so much.
I want to figure out how to become a fanager. How do I just get to go like give feedback on something I'm super passionate about every year?
That's great. And then kind of wrapping up the overall experiences, I know they're in Super Nintendo World. To me, it's kind of a throwback to the old Nintendo 64 game Yoshi's Story, where you had all of these different colored Yoshis, and there's the opportunity to meet these Yoshis. There's also a puzzle game that unlocks a secret location. Like, the world building in Super Nintendo World rather is so over the top. And you guys, it seems like, are just adding on to this within FanFest nights. How is the Yoshi experience and the Super Nintendo World experience going to how is that going to appeal to the fans?
The opportunity with the experiences we're creating in Super Nintendo World is that the goal of it was, as soon as you walk through that warp pipe, that you're experiencing something new, something different, something unique, and something exclusive for FanFest nights. So you've got one experience during the day. How can we be complementary to that experience at night, but also additive to the experience? So we came up with this idea of being able to introduce one of the most lovable creatures out there, Yoshi, as part of last year's event, and did it in a very fun way. And we're certainly leveling that up this year, where now you get a chance to meet with 5 different Yoshis. So we've got green and light blue and pink joined by yellow and purple. And one of my favorite things I'm looking forward to is being able to stand in the middle of Super Nintendo World and just turn 3 and see all the different Yoshis interacting and engaging with our guests. And then we're dialing that even further and expanding on the already very highly interactive essence of the land, and being able to create unique activations that promote exploration throughout the land. And this year we're creating a puzzle that you need to solve. And if you solve the puzzle, you get a clue or a password that you have to unscramble. And once you do that, you provide that password to one of our attendants, and you're granted access to a very special reward moment featuring some of our characters that we think will be a really well-received addition to the overall land experience, but also iterative, again, going back to that, of some of the foundation we set with FanFest nights last year.
Is that functionality tied into the power bands along with the way it is during the day, during the normal interactivity?
Yeah, the activations that we're creating for FanFest nights are a little more physical and tactile in its approach, while still, definitely promoting the interactivity of the band play with the Power Up Band. This allows you to have a separate, unique experience for FanFest nights.
Cool. I think so. Similar a little bit to Super Nintendo World, Harry Potter Wizarding World is also getting a walkthrough its own experience. Maybe touch a little bit on how the decision with both of them really to kind of use these existing very immersive spaces and expand them for this temporary select nights for a month.
Yeah, what we're doing in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter is really exciting. It's single-handedly the largest seasonal add to that land in the last 10 years, which that land, of course, just celebrated its 10-year anniversary. So we're developing a new walkthrough concept in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter called the Forbidden Forest Search for the Hippogriff. And they're similar to some of the other experiences. It's a story-based pulsed attraction where you're brought into smaller groups. And our mission is to venture deep into the Forbidden Forest to search for a hippogriff that has been lost and is in trouble. And along the way, we get introduced to different magical creatures. We have to overcome obstacles. And ultimately, we get a chance to come face to face and interact with this hippogriff, which we ultimately free through the use of spellcasting. And that moment alone is going to be something that is kind of awe-striking, amazing. It's a fully puppeted hippogriff character creature that with a wingspan of about 20 feet. So in that moment, which is going to be, of course, the climax of this experience, we think that guests are going to truly get that engagement and interactivity that we're really trying to develop as part of it.
Very cool.
And as part of that, I saw that guests can bring their own wands that they've got inside the park, or if they don't have their own wands, kind of the team member who's leading this. I'm assuming there is a Harry Potter character tie-in who they will actually be. They've got the wand, but if you have a wand, you can use it during this experience.
That's right. Yeah, interactivity is certainly encouraged. So if you've got a wand, definitely recommend you bring it because you'll have a chance to interact with it along the way. And if you don't, you'll still have that ability to engage and interact with it through the use of the professor character who is going to be guiding us through this journey in the Forbidden Forest.
Cool. And then I know the last fandom, I think the last one was announced, that there's also a Sailor Moon new show in the DreamWorks Theater. Is that one was that already developed for Universal Japan, or was that something that you guys also kind of had to custom develop to fit into the theater here?
Yeah, another extension of anime into FanFest nights. And as you mentioned, another great partnership with our Universal Studios Japan partners. So they developed as part of their Cool Japan seasonal offerings, a media-based attraction, which we're now debuting here at FanFest nights, celebrating the Sailor Moon characters, the Sailor Moon story, and the overall environments. And we think it's going to be one of those fan favorites. We're seeing such great reception to Sailor Moon, and we're so excited to be able to debut it as part of FanFest Nights this year.
Very cool. I like the collaboration with Universal Japan. I was there a few years ago and remember being surprised but also impressed by how much anime content there was, and thinking to myself, oh, these would probably be really popular in the US too. It'd be nice to see some of these come over. And so that's great. And we do have to ask, because I know some friends who big fans of fandoms that were there last year. They're not there this year. Mostly Back to the Future and Star Trek. Assuming FanFest Nights continues into the future, are there chances that there sort of be a rotation of some of those FanFests where like, oh, not Back to the Future this year, but in a couple years it will come back, or like the Star Trek experience will come back in a new form, the way One Piece has come back in a different form? Is there part of the roadmap with any of that?
Well, in terms of the roadmap, that's always something that we're looking at is listening to the fans, making sure that we're balancing the experiences that we're creating each year, and certainly looking towards the future and how we can continue engaging and promoting these different interactive experiences along the way with either new brands or bringing back some fan favorites like we did this year.
Cool. Do you take requests for fandoms that we want to see?
Always. One of the great things is being able to either read some of the guest response or engage with our fans during the event and hearing the things that they want to see and experience and explore. It's one of the most fun parts of the jobs is once we get to opening and we're able to be out there each and every night of FanFest Nights and seeing how the guests are experiencing it and engaging with them along the way. And just kind of standing back and watching these different communities and fandoms come together each and every night is just a really rewarding moment where you get that immediate gratification for all the work and investment that the team puts into developing the event.
Very cool. I'm always too much of a coward for Halloween Horror Nights, but when there was a Ghostbusters maze at Halloween Horror Nights, I was like, oh, that might be enough to get me to go. So I'm crossing my fingers there will be a less scary Ghostbusters at FanFest Nights in the future.
There we go. Your vote is in.
See, that's all we needed.
Yeah.
We had to get Stephen on the podcast, and we've got it on there. So Stephen, obviously, in addition to these immersive experiences, there is a food and merchandise component, and with fans coming to this event, they obviously want to be fully immersed in the experience, be that with a themed beverage or a food item or a special merchandise item. On this list, is there anything that kind of stands out to you that guests could kind of look forward to, or that you particularly looking forward to from the merchandise and food perspective?
Our food and merchandise team have hit it out of the park this year with the ability to extend these fandoms beyond the experiences. So we're going to have unique and exclusive offerings around around almost all of the brands. One Piece, Dungeons and Dragons, Sailor Moon, they're all getting their own unique and exclusive food items that guests can experience and celebrate along the way. And then merchandise, a way to extend your enjoyment and your experience of FanFest nights beyond FanFest nights in really unique and exclusive ways is the way that we create a holistic package of the event experience and the guest experience along the way.
Perfect. And I've got to ask, you mentioned you're 4 years into the development. This is year 2. You've seen it all with year 1. What are you personally looking forward to most about year 2?
The way in which we have continued to further the level of interactivity and exploration of the events. And we've done that in so many different ways, whether it be the types of interactions. A great example of that is the gameplay portion of our backlot experience with Scooby-Doo Meets the Universal Monsters, being able to extend the level of interactivity with the ability to create new stories in new ways with brands like One Piece. Along the way, really trying to make sure everything that we developed, all the concepts that we were able to bring to life, still have that through line of interactivity, exploration, and engagement. I think is something that the guests and the fans are really going to experience and celebrate as part of their journey through FanFest nights this year.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Stephen. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to make sure we highlight to our listeners who are hopefully planning to go?
Yeah, no, we're just looking forward to seeing everybody. The event kicks off on April 23rd, so we're hopeful and we're looking forward to seeing everyone there.
Cool. I can't wait. I'm planning to get down there, I think May 9th, sometime that first week of May, and to check everything out.
Then I'll see you there.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Stephen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome back anytime.
All right. Sounds good. We'll talk
next year.
And we're back. As Stephen said at the end of that interview, FanFest Nights begins at Universal Studios Hollywood on April 23rd, taking place select nights through May 16th. Eric, what did you think of our conversation with Stephen? I thought he had some really great insights.
Yeah, I will say that, we sort of touched on it during the interview. He's made me very excited. I think even more excited for getting down there to check it out. I think especially with the Universal Monsters meets Scooby-Doo immersive experience, because I knew that it was going to be a backlot experience. They don't have Back to the Future, which was the backlot experience last year, but I didn't know as much detail about the storyline for it and like what the actual interactivity and trying to solve the mystery is going to be. And I think it sounds very fun. And I also just like the idea that you can go down there and hang out in the little Europe part of Universal Studios as long as you want and just like explore that part of the backlot. It sounds so fun.
The birthplace of the Universal Monsters. I'm here for the moment that the Universal Monsters are having on both coasts now, between Dark Universe, the Scooby-Doo meets the Universal Monsters at FanFest nights. I'm glad that Universal is kind of going back to their roots with this one a little bit.
Yeah.
Definitely on both coasts. But for more information on FanFest nights, be sure to visit universalstudioshollywood.com. You can follow the park on social media. Just search Universal Studios Hollywood. It will come up. I know it's at Uni Studios on Twitter/X.
I think on Instagram as well.
There we go. On Instagram as well. After you visit universalstudioshollywood.com, make sure you visit us, coaster101.com. It's going to be after this episode airs, but Eric will have a review of his trip down to FanFest nights. Make sure you're also following us on social media at coaster101 everywhere you can consume social media. And if you're listening to this podcast, make sure you're also doing the other buzzwords: liking, reviewing, 5-star rating, telling friends to listen. Because the more feedback we get, the more listeners we get as our audience continues to build. We're going to continue to bring you great guests like Stephen, who are going to tell us all about these special events and their work at the parks, the work that they're clearly passionate about. And, we get to kind of reveal go behind the curtain a little bit, which for us as fans, I think is just as important. And then, we get to recount those stories to you guys. So we really enjoy that. Also, coaster101.com/merch for the latest and greatest theme park inspired Coaster 101 merchandise. A huge thank you, as always, to Justin Mabry of JM Entertainment for our theme music. And Eric, I hope you have a great time down at FanFest nights at Universal Studios Hollywood.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. You should come out.
Planes are expensive.
Maybe next year.
Maybe next year. We should do a Patreon, maybe. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster 101 podcast, and we will talk to you again soon.
Bye.
See ya.